Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular board meeting for the public schools, City of Dearborn Public Schools, for August 22nd, 2022. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and sharing your time with us. I also want to just remind you, if you would like to address the board during public comments, please fill out a blue card. I need you to fill those out and get them turned into Mr. Mustin as soon as possible. Thank you very much. First item, please, may I have a roll call?
Trustee Berry?
Here.
D'Ambrosio?
Here.
Trustee Mosa?
Here.
Petrikov? Trustee Thorpe?
He is not going to be with us this evening.
Trustee Watts? Here. President McDonald?
Here. Next item, please.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag. The Board of Education will lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done.
No certificates?
Certificates are in the mail.
Next item, please.
Superintendent's update.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great summer. Before I get on to my items, I just want to mention to the public and to the audience, we are going through some renovations here in the boardroom, much needed after a long time. I know we've had some upgrades that we need with the electronic monitors and the desk and the audio that we're implementing. So today it's not totally complete. It's temporary, but we're in process, and I believe it'll be finished by the September board meeting. So I just wanted to mention that to the public. So I'll move on to my agenda items. I'm going to start with our retirements. As we do every month, we want to congratulate and thank our retirees for their many years of service supporting our students. So we'll start with Armin Alabakoff, 29 years of service. Susan Barent, over 20 years of service. Cheryl Cook, 21 years of service. Majid Fadlallah, over 26 years of service. Joe Ray Greco, over 34 years of service. And I do have to make a mention here. She was my supervising teacher at Oakman in 1996 when I started my career and received my certificate. So I had to make a point of congratulating her special.
And she taught both my daughters.
Yes. So I just felt like I needed to do that. And I did email her today. She emailed me as well. We have Mary Henson Danier, over 25 years of service. Christine Leonard, over 25 years of service. Kevin Mattern, over 33 years of service. And Cheryl Piskey, over 31 years of service. Again, if we congratulate them and thank them for their many years of service. And I will move on to non-agenda items. I'm going to start with a remembrance of Shirley Wetmore. Shirley was a teacher in Dearborn for 45 years, retiring in 95. She passed away on July 11th at the age of 94. Miss Wetmore started at Ten Eyck when it was an elementary school and moved to Snow Elementary, where she spent a majority of her career. Shirley touched the lives of thousands of students in Dearborn and was a dedicated and caring teacher. Our thoughts and prayers go out to her family, and we thank her for her years of service as well. Moving along, my second favorite event of the year comes up next week, and that is the first day of school. We know we'll have some excitement. We know students will be excited. Parents will be excited. We know there'll be some anxiety. We know we may have some kindergarten runners that we may have to catch in the elementary schools, but we'll do that. And, I can always remember my children now are, my daughter going on 19 and my son 16, but I still remember Mom, my wife, the first day in kindergarten, and excitement but nervousness. So I want to just welcome everyone back to the year, and we're very excited. We're going to have cabinet administrators, as we always do, out there the first day, and I will be very visible in the schools over the first couple of weeks. We invite the board if you're available. Joanne will send you, the list, but we will have cabinet out there, and you're welcome if you're available. But it is a very exciting time. The only event that is my favorite is graduation. Other than that, I say the first day of school. So
If it was a reason I could get out of jury duty that day, I would take it.
oh, there we go.
Unfortunately.
So another update, just, we're coming in, obviously COVID we've been dealing with over the last 2 years. This year we're starting in person. We have masks as a personal choice for individuals, whether that be staff or students, and we'll continue to monitor conditions, and it's something, that we'll have mitigation as necessary, but we're grateful that we're getting back to some sense of normalcy as we move forward and monitor that. And we have great nurses. And this is on my crisis team agenda every month for discussion, and it always has been, and we'll continue to monitor what's going on, promote vaccine and other things that come from CDC. When the CDC makes recommendations, we do have to wait for the state and then the county to react before it's official within the school district by law. I want to mention the competitive market with staff that's going on. Some of you may have seen even the reports on national newscasts. Even yesterday there was one, and the teacher shortage in different states. But I think there is some hope. I think we in our district right now are in pretty good shape. HR has been working really hard, and our teachers and our principals to deal with some of the vacancies. We have less than last year. The state is also making some moves. I was in a meeting last week with Dr. Rice. Through the new state budget, there's $575 million invested in Grow Your Own teaching programs, recognizing, and that's a variety of things. We did get some money earlier on for our teachers, and we're going to continue to follow that. I would also mention that the state did, and it was highlighted on the national news yesterday, Michigan was one of 2 states that is now allowing retirees to come back. There's some parameters there, but that is one thing that they're going to be looking at. Prior, you weren't allowed, or you would hurt your retirement. There is a 9-month waiting period, so more to come on that, but that is something that the state just enacted, recognizing the teacher shortage not only in the state but across the nation. But we did have some reports that this year we had less teachers actually retiring across the nation than we did the previous year, so that's a positive as well. So I think we're doing well. I also want to mention, with the budget coming in, it's one of the highest budgets from the state. Overall, we're getting about additional $27 million. A lot of that is for at-risk money. Our per pupil allowance is now at $94.63. A lot of that money is tied to wages. It's negotiated with our union contracts. It is going to be one of the highest increases I've seen in one swoop. If you added last year's letters of agreements, all of our employees in the next little bit will be receiving between a 4 to 5% increase across the board, and that is tied to all the contracts based on the foundation allowance. So obviously our staff works hard, and we're glad that they're getting compensation, but there will also be money coming for at-risk services for students. We have a lot of things like social workers and others. We have special ed funding that's coming in from the state, and we do have some funding for safety and security. So it is one of the best budgets I've seen coming from the state. It's definitely important for us, especially as some of the funding will dry up from the ESSER fundings that we're using that was there for the first couple of years. We had those very large summer programs. We currently won't have the federal funding like we had the last 2 years to run a very large summer program, but we will still look for funding and other things because we know it's very important. But I do think that's a positive and want to tie it to our recruitment efforts as well. Want to mention school safety. We've had many budget meetings, and there's $2 million allocated to the district for safety. We're looking at different things, not only with that, but with our money that's in the general fund that Mr. Wall and I and the team have been meeting that will eventually come to the board. We're looking at increasing card readers, cameras at the elementary, and we are going to be looking at vestibules, we call them, secure vestibules in all the schools. Some have them, but some do not have them, where they have the double door entry, and we're going to be looking at implementing that across the board. So those are some things that are coming forward. And then the CareHawk system will be fully implemented, other than we do have an issue, not an issue, but there are 2 schools that we will not be fully operational, but the PA systems will be, and we expect that will be implemented within a couple of weeks. Other than that, the rest of the schools are fully operational. The 3 buildings that don't have students were always on the schedule to be last, so they won't be installed, I believe, until later in the fall. But that was always part of the plan. So I just wanted to give everyone an update there. And I want to mention today we talked about recruitment. It's exciting, the new teacher orientation. We had over 86 teachers that were in this room this morning. Ms. Faye Turfy was running the meeting. Ms. Farage and others were helping, and the executive directors, Mr. Martin. I know the union was involved. Every year we host the teachers, And the one thing I can tell them as I go there, and I said, you know, I was in your shoes, because I remember sitting there in 1997 at the same orientation, you know, some different things now, but we could relate, and obviously we're excited to bring in our new teachers with the excitement. And I know they do a great job providing support and training through the teacher university. It's not even just, so it's the first couple of days, but it's ongoing throughout the year for new teachers through the program. I also want to mention that cultural sensitivity training, we've had additional meetings. You know, we've been doing that over the last couple of years, but we're really looking at working with a consultant, and we're going to be working with the State Superintendent Association that has a series, and that's going to help us tie it heavily to our strategic plan, so we have a full plan that will be outreach to all schools in the district, and we've been having meetings. We kind of have a subcommittee on that, and I am directly involved in that committee. And the last thing that I have, I know there's been some talk, and it's Dr. Rice talked about this in my meeting. You know, they had public comment about library books at the state level. It's happening in other districts, and I know there's concerns. We do have a process that we're going to implement to you know, look at our library books. Again, all districts are facing this right now, and I'm going to call up Dr. Groover and Mr. Martin, who are going to talk about the process that we have in place for, you know, reviews. We are getting communications on all ends with differing opinions and, you know, concerns, and we want to listen to the parents and obviously have a process in place to review materials as needed.
Thank you, Dr. Malik. President McDonald, trustees, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gruber. She's going to kind of talk about the process that she's taking the lead. It really supports our media specialists. I will tell you from a district perspective in this, you know, I think it was back in June, we had some audience participation, asking some questions about books that were in the media center. From a district perspective, we have added additional staffing going into this year to help with some of this work. There is conversations about some other positions and other availability to assist our media specialists in continuing to do the work to ensure that what we have in our media centers, we know what it is and is appropriate certainly for our students. So Dr. Gruber.
Good evening, President McDonald, trustees, and Dr. Baleko. So one of the things that we are doing is tightening up some of our procedures as far as oversight of the books in the district's media centers. We have over 100,000 books in our media centers. That's a lot of books. We have 13 and a half media specialists that oversee that process. We do have processes in place, but we're looking at how we can tighten that up even more. One of the first things that we're going to do is do a complete inventory. That's a fairly simple procedure in which we scan the books on the shelves to match them with what we think we have in our Destiny collection. We often find that there are discrepancies between those two, and it needs to be done on a regular basis. So that's the first step in the process. The second step in the process is a media term called weeding. WEEDING, and that's looking at books according to specific criteria that include appropriateness, but also date of publication, how often it's checked out, all of those things. It's very important that the media specialists do the weeding in their own collections so that they know what they have in their collection. So as Mr. Martin said, we have been given additional support from the district to support those media specialists in weeding their collections and making sure that what we have on the shelves is appropriate. And then the third prong of the process is really a book review process. So if a book is missed and a parent, a staff member, or a student identifies that book as needing to be reviewed, for appropriateness at the level or appropriateness for the message or language or anything like that, it would be brought to a book review committee, which would be a district committee that is composed of some parents, some teachers, some administrators, some media specialists. And they would be responsible for reading the entire book, because that's very important, to look at the book in its entirety, and then making a recommendation as to what should happen to that book. Should it be a book that should not be present in any of our media centers, or possibly it's a book that's in our middle schools and it's more appropriate for older students? So they would look at the books in their entirety and then make a recommendation moving forward for that, and it would be a district committee. So we're hoping that by publicizing this, by enlisting some parents as well as some other interested staff members, that we can make sure that all of the books that we have in our media centers are appropriate for our students.
Trustee Barry?
Yes, thank you for the report. A couple meetings ago, I asked, what is the process of, when the books come in? Is that part of the weeding process at that point?
So I think that we did a board report on that, and we put it in the board briefs. We do have an ordering process. Our media specialists are certified media specialists. They're trained. They have master's degree in library science, and there is a Dearborn specific policy for ordering books that involves looking at reviews, that looks at, they can't always read every book that comes in.
Understandable,
And
yes.
so they look at reviews, they look at a wide variety of sources. Sometimes they get opinions or staff ask for a particular book. And then when the books are brought in, they personally look at the books and do a visual scan of the book. Again, there's a lot of books.
Just for the record, yes, I know it was in board brief. Sometimes I ask a question to
Okay.
bring out the information so the public can hear it too.
Right,
Just
yeah,
FYI.
no, so that is part of the book ordering process. We are in the process of updating the entire media specialist handbook and making sure that all of our policies and procedures are as tight as possible as far as how we order books, how we receive books, how we inventory, how we weed, and then how we undertake a book review if a book is questioned by anyone.
Completely going to respect the process. I'm very thankful to the committee, especially the parents who brought this to our attention. I can kind of go out on a limb and say that, some of the books that they're finding in, Oakland County schools are just like, oh my God. But, yeah, so I think we're going to be, there's going to be things that we have to change, but I think we're way better off than most
Right,
districts.
we're looking at all of those processes.
And I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
As we move forward.
Thank you very much.
Is there a process at the other end of the spectrum, once books are approved in the buildings and we deem them age appropriate and they're in the right place, if a parent would like their child to not be able to access certain books, do we have that in place already where a parent can opt their child out?
We are certainly looking at that because that seems to be a good option, that there could be some books that parents were uncomfortable with. One of the things is that we want to removing a book entirely from a library takes away access from any student. And there might be books that fall into a grayer category. So that is what we're looking at putting in place as far as a parent being able to opt a student out and they wouldn't be able to check certain books out.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure, we don't want to go down that road where a committee is making a decision on behalf of all students, all parents, for what they deem as appropriate and inappropriate, and take away the ability for students to have access to a wide variety of selection.
Sure. It is walking a fairly
Yeah, it
narrow
is.
path.
It is.
Any other questions?
I have a
Trustee
question
Moser?
about the books that we have in the high schools. Are they all in one software system?
We all have, we have an online system called Destiny
Right.
that we purchased through the county. And that's what we need to match the physical books on the shelf with our online system because that hasn't been done in a couple of years and we want to make sure that it matches. That's the first step in the process.
Okay.
Yes.
And you mentioned that for any parent or student that want to flag a book, how would they go about that process and where they can find that out?
So
that
we're
information?
going to post this on the district website and on the school blogs. We will have a form that the parent or whoever would like to have a book reviewed would fill out, and then it would come, and then we would schedule a date for the book review. We have a draft of a form now.
Okay. And my last question is, there were books that were not appropriate, that they say on the cover. So how did those slip in the cracks, knowing that we do have majority of the students are minors?
I think that Mr. Martin
Can
is going to talk about one of those books.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, trustee Moses. So yes, were made aware recently of a few texts, and one of them is going to be our guinea pig, so to speak, in the book challenge process. The title of the book is Push. We did talk to some concerned parents who had some other titles as well. So certainly determining if it is in the media centers, and Push was, it goes back as far as 2005, it was purchased or put in the Fordson Library, but it was in all 3 libraries. Has only been checked out 26 total times over the course of time that it's been there. Last time it was checked out was in 2020, but that title has been pulled as we're going to go through the process. So this gives us a good opportunity to kind of test the process, test the committee. We were given some other titles that we're looking into and trying to determine if they are in our libraries. I can tell you firsthand from being in the media center, that book was purchased in 2005. I don't even know that the media specialist who's overseeing Fordson was there in 2005. So a lot of changing of hands. And we also, I can just say, went through a time of resource scarcity where we didn't have a lot of hands overseeing things and clean process. So Dr. Groover has done a fantastic job of developing those processes, and we're looking forward to partnering with parents as they kind of help us with if a book needs to be reviewed, what is that process to make sure that it's appropriate for our students who have access to it. So I can't really tell you
I can
specifically
go as
how
back
it got
as
there, but
2003. I was at Fordson.
yeah,
Our teacher, probably I could say his name, but, well, our English teacher, we read Huckleberry Finn for the story for Mark Twain.
Yep.
And at the time, as Mark Twain had written his novel, the N-word was pretty much in every page.
Yeah.
But that teacher who still teaches at Fordson, took it on his part to actually scribble that word out of every single page. So we don't see that and put a slave instead of it. So, but I could see the amount of work that the media specialists are gonna be going through and finding books that might not be appropriate and probably flagging it. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Trustee Petchikoff?
Just as a teaching moment, though, sometimes the educator should explain why that word was in the book and what it signified
In the
and what,
context.
rather than just scribbling it out. I hate to see that we start going in the direction of only things that we find acceptable to ourselves and eliminating the opportunity to have a full discussion of a variety of thoughts, differences of opinion and belief systems, rather than assuming that we can just erase those things that we're uncomfortable with. I don't necessarily want a society that hasn't had the ability to be exposed to a variety of opinions and positions. And we have to be careful about how we present. We should use it as a time to educate, not a time to remove. And I-
Historical content should always be a
Yes.
factor too, as well. Anyone else? I have a kind of a logistical question. Do you have any idea what the approximately 100,000 titles the inventory process will take?
We believe that the inventory process can happen pretty quickly.
Okay.
Because we can actually either train students or the media secretaries can do it, because it is a simple scanning and matching to the online system. The weeding process will take more time. And as I said, it's very important that the media specialists they are the primary weeders of their own collections. So we have a flex team with the additional personnel that can go in and support that, like free up the media specialists to do that work. We have prioritized the media centers so that we will do them in descending order. So we were going to start with the high school media centers, work to middle school, work down to elementary. We're also looking at when they were last weeded so that could have a factor as well. So I anticipate it will take more than just this year to finish the weeding process. So we would have in place, the inventory would be done this year, the weeding would be ongoing, and then the book review process and the form would be available this year as well. The other thing that is important is that we don't just do this once, that we have a rotating schedule for this, and we haven't had that in the past. And so that just because we finished doing Fordson's this year, we need to make sure that it's on a schedule to do it again in another couple of years, so that we always know where we are in this process.
Agreed. Anyone else? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next item, please.
Before we move
Oh,
on,
sure.
just a quick comment, Dr. Maleko. The last meeting under transportation discussion, I asked for something in the discussion. I assumed that it was going to get to the request for information. I should have made it clear later on in the meeting, but Joanne, thank you, she caught that. The last sentence on page 9 of the minutes says that I asked for, what the additional cost would be to create a full-time bus driver position. If you remember that discussion we were having, if you take a bus driver part-time, add more responsibilities, what is the additional cost if a full-time position is created?
Okay.
When you get a chance.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Next item, please.
Recognition and acknowledgements, commendations.
Good evening. Commendations. Commendations to the drivers, mechanics, and dispatcher who worked over the Dearborn homecoming weekend to provide shuttle service to and from the festival. For many years, the district has provided shuttle service for those attending homecoming, but this year's event included additional shuttle stops, allowing even more residents to take advantage of an easy way to enjoy homecoming. Our buses ran from 11:30 a.m. until midnight all 3 days of the event. And special thanks to Rick Sortis and his dedicated staff and transportation for their efforts to support the Dearborn homecoming. Commendation to Fortson High School football coach Osama Abul Hassan on receiving the Bill Walsh Minority Coaching Fellowship with the New York Jets. The fellowship allows college and high school coaches to gain some NFL experience and insight by helping with training camps and other preseason activities with their sponsoring team. Commendations to Fortson High School student Malik Ali and her mother, Ms. Sharif, plus Dearborn High students Brenna Thorpe, who volunteered to help the Dearborn Rotary Club in removing trash along Telegraph Highway in July. Telegraph Road in July. Commendations to Eddie Terry Jr., an engineer at Henry Ford Elementary, and Rob Baranowski, the district HVAC tech. Both men acted swiftly to ensure the safety of Henry Ford Elementary when a gas line broke at the building over the summer. Mr. Terry recognized the sound of a ruptured gas line even before gas could be smelled in the building. He contacted DTE and the fire department and evacuated the few staff members in the building. Mr. Baranowski was able to access HVAC controls to one by one shut down each of the classroom systems and the building's main air supply fans so the fire department could enter the building and shut off the main power to avoid a possible spark and explosion. Much thanks. That's all for accommodations.
Acknowledgements of donations.
Donations, we have one for today. A donation of $480 has been offered to Salina Intermediate School by Ghazi Maflahi to be used for PBIS student incentives and awards. Thank you.
And lastly, staff recognition, technology staff.
I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Bob Addy because it's technology staff today.
And while we're waiting for Mr. Addy to come up, I just want to commend them and say thank you because he helped me over the weekend with some technical difficulties and it lingered until this morning and it was all taken care of. So thank you very much to you and your team.
We got this. So that's what the technology department's all about. So Dr. Maleko, members of the Board of Education, we have a tremendous backbone for our district's network infrastructure right here. And so with me today are members of our district technology team. As I mentioned before, the technology team's a major part of our network backbone. And during the recent pandemic, the emphasis of technology became even more important in keeping kids connected to learning. This team helped us to emerge from the pandemic by making sure that kids were connected, they were able to access the programs that they needed, and have Chromebooks in their possession. We work together with computer services to make sure that grades and attendance are recorded, students are rostered in the classes they need to get to, and that all students have access to the applications that will help them be successful global citizens. Working with our team, we're very flexible with our scheduling and keeping students in the classes they need. And as we continue to move beyond the pandemic right there, our team is working towards keeping a safe, secure, and engaging learning environment for all students. Our team is made up of dedicated members that are network support analysts, AKA the techs, network administrators, technology coaches. We have a district webmaster, data entry specialists, and 2 supervisors, a supervisor of networks and a supervisor of computer services. Together, our team works above and beyond the contractual hours to help our district students, staff, and administrators have equitable access to technology resources and really meet their needs in keeping students first. And so with us today, I'd like to share our dedicated member of the teams with you. So we have our Media Services Secretary, Ms. Cheryl Mattern, one of our network administrators, Mr. Shane Robertson, our district webmaster, Mr. Scott Tobias, our technology support analyst at the help desk, Ms. Chelsea Jankowiak, and an outstanding tech coach who's helped at the secondary level and a true team player, Mr. Bob Harrison. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Before you leave, can we get some photographs, please?
Absolutely.
Anyone from the board would like to come up and?
Good, sir. Oh, you gotta take a step down here. This one.
Thank you all.
Bob, I didn't even notice that Toronto Maple Leafs pin you had.
Would I do something like that? Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Next item, please.
Approval of minutes of the following Dearborn Board of Education meeting. Regular P-12 meeting, July 25th, 2022, Board Report 22-17. Executive session, closed evaluation, July 25th, 2022. Board Report 22-18. Board Training Session, Part 2, July 28th, 2022. Board Report 22-19. Make any necessary corrections and move approval of these minutes.
So moved. Support.
Okay, I have a moved by trustee Moses and support by
No.
trustee Barry? No, I'm sorry.
Trustee Barry, and then supported by trustee
Okay.
Ambrose.
Are there any corrections? Anyone? Not hearing anyone, or any, may I please have a roll call?
Trustee Barry?
Yes.
Trustee D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Trustee Moses?
Yes.
Trustee Petrikov?
Yes.
Trustee Thorpe? Trustee Watts? Yes. President McDonald?
Yes.